What happens when a future King of England comes face to face with Hollywood's most provocative late-night host, and neither one is willing to back down? Tonight we're diving into the explosive confrontation that had Prince William stormed off. Jimmy Kimmel live in what witnesses are calling the most shocking celebrity interview meltdown in television history. Before we get into this incredible story, make sure you subscribe and drop a comment below telling me what you think really triggered this royal breakdown. The tension in Studio 6619 at El Capitan Entertainment Center was palpable from the moment Prince William walked onto the Jimmy Kimmel Live set. What was supposed to be a routine promotional appearance for his latest charitable initiative had already taken an unexpected turn during the pre-show briefing. The royal communications team had been very specific about certain topics being off-limits, but Jimmy Kimmel had built his career on pushing boundaries that other hosts wouldn't dare cross. "Your Royal Highness, welcome to the show," Jimmy began, with his trademark grin, but there was something different in his demeanor tonight. The audience applauded enthusiastically as William took his place in the guest chair, adjusting his navy blue suit jacket with the practiced ease of someone who had done thousands of interviews. "Thank you for having me, Jimmy. It's always a pleasure to be here in Los Angeles," William replied, his refined British accent cutting through the studio noise. His smile was diplomatic, professional, but those who knew him well might have noticed the slight tightness around his eyes. "Now I have to ask," Jimmy leaned forward conspiratorially, "because our audience is dying to know. How does it feel to be the spare who became the heir? I mean, your brother Harry really shook things up when he decided to, shall we say, pursue other opportunities." The studio fell eerily quiet. William's media training kicked in immediately, but viewers could see his jaw clench almost imperceptibly. "I think that's a rather simplistic way to characterize a complex family situation, Jimmy. My focus has always been on service to the Commonwealth and the causes that matter most to the British people." Right, service." Jimmy nodded, but his tone suggested he wasn't buying it. "But let's be honest here, William. Can I call you William? The whole world watched your family's dirty laundry get aired out in primetime interviews, documentaries, that Netflix series. Your brother basically accused you and your father of being, and I quote, trapped in the system. How do you respond to that?" William's composure began to show hairline cracks. "I think there are more productive ways we could spend our time tonight, Jimmy. Perhaps we could discuss the mental health initiatives that Catherine and I have been developing, or the environmental work that's so crucial for future generations." "Oh, come on," Jimmy pressed, sensing weakness like a shark smelling blood in the water. "You're telling me that when your own brother goes on international television and says the royal family cut him off financially, didn't support his wife's mental health struggles, and basically forced them into exile, you don't have anything to say about that? The William I've heard about isn't someone who just takes that lying down." The camera caught William's hands gripping the armrests of his chair. "What exactly have you heard about me, Jimmy? Because I'm curious what version of events has made its way to your writer's room." "Well," Jimmy's grin widened, "I've heard you've got quite the temper when things don't go your way. I've heard that behind all that royal protocol and stiff upper lip, you're actually pretty demanding. Some might even say entitled." "Entitled?" William's voice dropped to a dangerously quiet level. "That's an interesting word choice coming from someone who makes millions of dollars mocking people on television every night." The audience shifted uncomfortably. This wasn't the light-hearted celebrity banter they were expecting. Jimmy, however, seemed to be enjoying himself more by the minute. "Hey, I'm just asking the questions America wants answered." Jimmy shrugged. "And speaking of questions, let's talk about your marriage. Beautiful wife, beautiful family, fairy tale ending, right? But there have been some persistent rumors about trouble in paradise. Care to address those?" William's face flushed red. "I think you've crossed a line there, Jimmy. My family is not up for discussion, especially not based on tabloid speculation and gossip." "But that's just it," Jimmy continued, completely ignoring the warning signs. It's not just tabloid gossip anymore, is it? I mean, when your own staff members are leaking stories about arguments, about separate living arrangements, about Catherine being unhappy with royal life, at what point does it stop being gossip and start being news? My staff members are not leaking anything, Williams said through gritted teeth, and I would appreciate it if you would show some basic respect for my wife and children. Respect? Jimmy laughed, a sound that echoed harshly through the studio. That's rich coming from someone whose family built their wealth and power on the backs of colonized nations. You want to talk about respect? Let's talk about the Crown's history in Africa, in India, in Ireland. How do you reconcile living in palaces bought with blood money while lecturing the world about humanitarian causes? The studio audience was dead silent now. Even Jimmy's regular supporters in the crowd seemed uncomfortable with the direction this was heading. Williams' media handlers in the wings were frantically trying to get the attention of the show's producers, but Jimmy was in full attack mode now. You know what, Jimmy? Williams' voice was steady, but there was steel in it. That hadn't been there before. I came here tonight to discuss important work that could genuinely help people. Instead, you've chosen to ambush me with personal attacks and historical grievances that have nothing to do with the charitable initiatives we're trying to promote. If this is how you conduct interviews, I'm beginning to understand why so many of your guests have such negative things to say about this experience. Oh, so now you're threatening me? Jimmy's eyebrows shot up in mock surprise. The future King of England is threatening a comedian on American television? This is even better than I hoped. I'm not threatening anyone. Williams' voice cut through the studio like a blade. I'm simply pointing out that your reputation for ambushing guests is well documented. But since you seem to enjoy digging into people's personal lives, let's talk about yours, shall we? Jimmy's confident smirk faltered for just a moment. Excuse me, you heard me correctly. William leaned forward, his diplomatic mask finally slipping away completely. You want to discuss family dysfunction? Let's discuss your 3 divorces. You want to talk about questionable life choices? Let's examine your history of public feuds with other comedians, your struggles with alcoholism that you've conveniently glossed over in your monologues, and your pattern of attacking people who can't fight back on equal terms. The studio audience gasped audibly. Jimmy's face went pale, then flushed red. You don't know what you're talking about, don't I? William's eyes were blazing now. You see, Jimmy, the difference between us is that when people research my life, they find charitable work, military service, and a commitment to causes that actually matter. When they research yours, they find a man who built his career on cruelty disguised as comedy. Tell me, how does it feel to know that your legacy will be making people feel small for the entertainment of others? You pompous, privileged piece of... Jimmy caught himself before finishing the sentence, but the damage was already done. The audience was now completely silent, watching this train wreck unfold in real time. Privileged? William stood up from his chair, his full height making him an imposing figure under the studio lights. You want to talk about privilege? You're a multimillionaire who owns multiple homes, drives luxury cars, and has never wanted for anything in your entire adult life. The only difference between us is that I was born into my responsibilities, while you clawed your way to yours by tearing other people down. At least I use my platform to try to help people. Help people? Jimmy was on his feet now, too, his voice rising. You help people? You live in a palace while people in your own country can't afford to heat their homes. You travel around the world in private jets talking about climate change. You wear million-dollar jewelry to charity galas while preaching about inequality. Don't lecture me about helping people when your entire existence is a monument to hypocrisy. At least I'm trying to make a difference, William shot back. What do you do besides make jokes about other people's pain? When was the last time you used this platform for anything meaningful? When was the last time you highlighted a cause that didn't somehow benefit your own image? Every night, Jimmy's voice was shaking with rage now. Every single night, I shine a light on the corruption and incompetence of people in power. People like you, who think they're better than everyone else just because of the family they were born into. People like me. William's laugh was bitter and harsh. Jimmy, I've served my country in the military. I've worked as a search and rescue pilot, literally saving lives while you were making jokes about celebrities on television. I've dedicated my adult life to causes that help veterans, support mental health awareness, and protect the environment. What have you dedicated your life to besides your own ego? The two men were now facing each other across the interview area, both clearly beyond any pretense of civility. Jimmy's producers were frantically signaling from the wings, but neither man was paying attention to anything except their mutual fury. You know what your problem is? Jimmy pointed a finger directly at William's chest. You can't handle the fact that not everyone bows and scrapes when you walk into a room. You can't handle being challenged by someone who doesn't care about your titles or your bloodline. You're just another spoiled rich kid who's never been told no. And you know what your problem is? William's voice was dangerously quiet again. You mistake cruelty for cleverness. You think that being nasty makes you edgy, but really it just makes you sad. You're a middle-aged man whose greatest achievement is making other people uncomfortable on television. That's not comedy, Jimmy. That's just being a bully with a bigger platform. A bully? Jimmy's face was purple with rage. You're calling me a bully. Your family has been bullying entire nations for centuries. Your grandmother literally wore the stolen jewels of conquered peoples to state dinners. Your father built his reputation on architectural criticism, while people died in poorly constructed housing that his policies helped create. And you want to call me a bully? At least we've tried to evolve. William's composure was hanging by a thread. At least we've acknowledged past mistakes and worked to do better. You just double down on being terrible and call it entertainment. Evolve? Jimmy let out a harsh laugh. Is that what you call it when your brother's wife talked about being suicidal, and your family's response was to worry about how it would look in the press? Is that evolution? That was the breaking point. William's face went completely white, then red with fury. How dare you? How dare you bring up something that personal, that painful, just to score points in an argument? You have no idea what our family went through during that time. No idea what private conversations took place, what support was offered. You just take the most inflammatory version of events and run with it because it fits your narrative. The narrative? Jimmy was practically screaming now. The narrative is that your family cares more about protecting the institution than protecting the people in it. The narrative is that you'd rather maintain the facade than deal with reality. And the narrative tonight is that you can't handle being questioned by someone who isn't impressed by your crown. I don't have a crown yet. William's voice was ice cold. But when I do, I'll remember this conversation every time someone asks me about the declining standards of American entertainment. You've provided a perfect example of everything that's wrong with celebrity culture in this country. And you've provided a perfect example of everything that's wrong with inherited power, Jimmy shot back. Entitled, defensive, and completely out of touch with reality. The studio was so quiet you could hear the cameras humming. Both men were breathing heavily, staring at each other with undisguised contempt. The audience didn't know whether to applaud, boo, or just sit in stunned silence at what they had just witnessed. Finally, it was William who broke the silence. His voice was controlled again, but there was something final in his tone that made everyone in the studio lean forward. You know what, Jimmy? You're absolutely right about one thing. I am entitled. I'm entitled to be treated with basic human decency. I'm entitled to have my family's privacy respected. And I'm entitled to walk away from people who mistake viciousness for wit. Oh, you're leaving? Jimmy's voice dripped with sarcasm. Running away when things get a little too real? How very royal of you. I'm not running away, William replied, straightening his jacket with deliberate precision. I'm choosing not to participate in whatever this is supposed to be. You invited me here under false pretenses, ambushed me with personal attacks, and then acted surprised when I defended myself. This isn't journalism, Jimmy. This isn't even entertainment. This is just sad. Sad? Jimmy laughed, but it sounded forced now. What's sad is a grown man who can't handle a few tough questions without having a meltdown on live television. Tough questions? William turned back to face him, his eyebrows raised in genuine disbelief. Is that what you call bringing up my sister-in-law's mental health struggles? Attacking my marriage? Making inflammatory statements about my children? Those aren't tough questions, Jimmy. Those are cheap shots designed to get a reaction. And, congratulations, you got one. The audience was completely captivated now, watching this real-time destruction of what was supposed to be a simple promotional interview. Some people were filming with their phones, despite the studio's strict no recording policy. Look, Jimmy tried to regain some control of the situation. Maybe we both got a little heated here. Why don't you just answer one real question for me? One honest question about what it's actually like to be you. And then we can move on to whatever charity thing you want to talk about. William studied him for a long moment, as if trying to determine whether this was another trap. Fine. One question. But it better be a real one. Okay, Jimmy nodded, and for a moment his expression seemed almost sincere. Here's my question. Do you ever wish you could just be a normal person? Do you ever resent the fact that you never got to choose your own life? For the first time all evening, William seemed to genuinely consider his answer. The studio held its breath as he thought about how to respond to what was actually a thoughtful question. You know what? William said finally. That's actually a fair question, and I'll give you an honest answer. Yes, there are times when I wonder what it would be like to have made different choices. There are times when I envy people who can make mistakes privately, who can have bad days without it becoming international news, who can raise their children without photographers following them to school. Jimmy nodded, seeming genuinely interested in the answer for the first time all night. But, William continued, I also know that I have opportunities that most people will never have. I can shine a spotlight on causes that matter. I can meet with world leaders and advocate for change. I can use my platform to actually make a difference in people's lives. So while I might sometimes wish for privacy, I don't resent my responsibilities. I just resent people who try to make those responsibilities harder by turning every interaction into a circus. That's a pretty thoughtful answer, Jimmy admitted, and for a moment it seemed like maybe they could salvage something from this disaster. Thank you, William replied. Now, was there something specific about the mental health initiative that you wanted to discuss, or was this entire booking just an excuse to take shots at my family? And just like that, Jimmy's moment of humanity evaporated. Oh, come on. You really think people tuned in tonight to hear about your charity work? They want to know about the real stuff, the drama, the family feuds, the rumors about your marriage. That's what people actually care about. William's face went stone cold. And there it is, the real Jimmy Kimmel. You had me fooled for about 30 seconds there. I actually thought you might be capable of having a genuine conversation. This is a genuine conversation, Jimmy protested. This is the first time you've been real all night. Real? William's voice was incredulous. You think attacking someone's family is real? You think ambushing your guests is real? Jimmy, you've spent this entire interview trying to humiliate me for your audience's entertainment. That's not real. That's just cruel. Maybe, Jimmy shrugged, but at least it's honest. At least I'm not pretending to be something I'm not. No, William agreed. You're definitely not pretending to be something you're not. You're exactly what you appear to be. A man who's built his career on other people's pain and somehow convinced himself that makes him edgy instead of just making him mean. And you're exactly what you appear to be too, Jimmy shot back. A privileged, entitled, out-of-touch royal who can't handle being treated like everyone else. William picked up his phone from the side table next to his chair and checked the time. Well, Jimmy, this has been educational. I've learned that your reputation for being unprofessional and hostile to your guests is well deserved. I hope your audience enjoyed watching you burn whatever credibility you had left. Where are you going? Jimmy demanded as William started, walking toward the exit. We're not done here. Actually, we are, William called back without turning around. I came here to discuss important work that could help people. You wanted to play games and attack my family. I don't have time for games, Jimmy. Some of us have actual work to do. You can't just walk out in the middle of a live show. Jimmy's voice was rising again. That's not how this works. William stopped and turned back one final time. Watch me. This is ridiculous, Jimmy called after him. You're acting like a child. No, William replied, his voice carrying clearly across the studio. I'm acting like an adult who refuses to be part of whatever toxic spectacle you call entertainment. Good luck explaining this to your producers. And with that, Prince William walked off the Jimmy Kimmel Live set, leaving behind a stunned studio audience, a furious host, and what would undoubtedly become one of the most talked-about interview disasters in television history. Jimmy stood there for a moment, seemingly unsure of what to do next. The cameras were still rolling, the audience was still watching, and his guest had just walked out on live television. Finally, he turned to the camera with a forced smile that didn't reach his eyes. Well, folks, I guess that's what happens when you ask the tough questions. We'll be right back after this commercial break, hopefully with a guest who can handle a little heat. But as the cameras cut away and the studio lights dimmed for the commercial break, everyone knew that this wasn't just another celebrity interview gone wrong. This was a complete meltdown that would be replayed, analyzed, and debated for months to come. And somewhere in the back of everyone's mind was the same question. Who really won this battle between Hollywood's most provocative host and the future King of England? What do you think? Did Jimmy Kimmel go too far, or was Prince William being overly sensitive? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more incredible stories like this one. Which celebrity do you think will have the next major television meltdown?